Today we're going to show you how to prep, weld and finish one of our DIY manifold kits. You'll find everything you need carefully packed in the box. So the first step is to clean up our metal parts ready for welding. The sheet metal parts come in hot rolled with a mill scale on them. The best way to remove this is using a sanding disc on an ordinary angle grinder or a flat disc. Tubes have an anti-rust coating on them, and the best way to get rid of this we found is using a Scotch-Brite wheel on an ordinary bench grinder. Okay, so now we've got our clean bits of metal, the next step is to put it on a fixture or a jig. We supply a big piece of 10mm mild steel with the holes already laser cut in it. That saves a lot of time. Alternatively, you can tack weld it to something big, purely to stop it distorting while you're welding. The next step is to offer up the pipes to the flange that you've bolted down. So the first thing you'll notice when you come to try and put the pipes there is there's a big problem in that they don't line up with the port spacings. So the first thing to do is to mark them and trim them down. Firstly, we put the T-piece on perfectly there. Get your square, line it up with the opposing port edge, mark it with a Sharpie, get your other T in there like that, get your square back, push it up to the edge of that T, mark it with a Sharpie, now you can measure this gap, which comes in at 25mm exactly. So now you just need to mark 12.5mm off here. Same on the other side. So the next step is we're going to cut in our elbows. They've got the same centerline radius as the T-pieces. We've got the luxury of using a chop saw with a 14-inch abrasive disc on it to chop our bends in. You can use an ordinary angle grinder with a cutting disc on it. We'd recommend always using a guard though, and make sure you mark it all the way around to try and get it square first. Once you've got your pipes cut in, the next step's to check them on the fixture and make sure they all line up with the ports. Before you weld anything, you're going to need a bevel on the edge of the tubes to make sure you get good penetration. We use a grinder with a sanding disc, just like cleaning up the plates, but you can use a flat disc. So we've beveled all our pipes. The next problem we've got to solve is we've got a round tube that's going towards an oval that's on the cylinder head flange. You can imagine if you press it on a wrong angle, you're going to have your oval on the wrong plane and your manifold's going to be a big wobbly mess. So the best way to mark it is by putting it on a flat surface, just like that, and marking the top of it with preferably a height gauge if you can measure the highest point, or you can just by eye mark it. The best way to fix this is by crushing the pipe. You can do this in a vise. We're going to use a hydraulic press. As you can see, this tube is still round. The one we've crushed has got a nice oval shape which matches the port quite nicely. All our pipes are matched up to the head flange. The next step's going to be putting around 6 tacks per joint on our assembly before we fully weld it. The beginnings of our manifold's all tacked up, ready to go. It's bolted down to our jig plate and we're ready to fully weld it with our TIG welder. We're going to use around 90 amps for this joint and around 130 amps for the head flange. So we've just fully welded our assembly. We're just waiting for it to cool down so that it doesn't warp still while it comes off the jig. And next we're going to test fit it on this cylinder head and work out our turbo position. So next step, we've got our cylinder head we're going to test fit on to check our turbo position and where we're going to put it. So put that on there and tighten these bolts up. We've got our manifold on the cylinder head. So the next step is to work out where we want to put our turbo flange. Now with a Subaru 3-bolt flange like this, we normally place them between cylinder 1 and 2. So the next step will be to tack this on and also mark this hole for drilling. So we've got all our tacks on the turbo flange. We've put the hole in, we've got our small plate that we've put in there. The next step is to fully weld everything with our TIG welder. To do this, we're going to have a fixture plate bolted on like this to keep everything nice and flat so it all seals when we're finished. Okay, so our log manifold for our MX-5 is more or less complete. We've finished all the welding on the turbo flange, we've welded our head flange on, everything's basically there. We've even added some weld into the turbo flange on the inside to help promote flow. You could go to town porting the head flange and this area if you wanted to. It's entirely up to you how much time you want to spend on your log manifold. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you've got any questions or queries at all, put them in the comments below. Get in touch on social media. If you want to have a go at your own log manifold kit, you can get hold of one here. That's all from us. See you next time.